Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we're going to be looking at another Disney-themed tier maker list. I made a video recently where I took a bunch of Disney villains and I ranked them in order of how forgivable they were for what they do in their respective films. So I'm going to do something kind of in that same vein. I'm going to take the Disney princesses, or heroines, and I'm going to rate them on how good of a role model they are. So as you can see, I only have the 4 sections because it's not much of a spectrum really, but I'm going to be rating them as to whether they are a perfect role model, a really good influence, far from perfect, or the worst possible example that one can have. I don't have a middle ground really because I don't think there's going to be any. I'm going to be pretty black and white about it, I think. And also pertinent to mention that because pretty much every Disney heroine is objectively just a perfect role model by the end of their films, I am going to be rating them based on how they are at the start of their respective movies. Without further ado, let's get into this. And right out of the gate, I think this is not even a Disney character at all. I believe this is Anastasia, and I'm not going to get into the how or why with Disney and Don Bluth and all that. But since she's here, let's rate her. Anastasia, I think she's a pretty good influence. She's a responsible young woman. She looks after herself. Uh, Not much else to say there, really. As for Anna, and again, we are rating them based on the start of their adventure, so before they've had all of their growth. Anna, I would say, is probably quite far from perfect. She's got a lot of stuff that she's got to work through, and she's kind of immature, I guess, for want of a better word. Ariel, probably the worst possible example, for the mere fact alone that she runs away from home on a flight of fancy, if you will, left home for a boy. She made bad choices. She wasn't really conscious of her decision making, so I wouldn't follow her example. Princess Ada from A Bug's Life. I would say she's a really good influence. She might have been a bit of an overthinker, a bit of a worrywart, but she was trying to do her job well, and that seemed to be the case from the get-go. As for Aurora, a really good influence. She means well. She's clearly a very selfless, caring person, but maybe a little trusting of strangers she meets in the woods. What are we trying to teach our kids, right? Belle, I have to put Belle as a perfect role model. Belle reminds me so much of my wife. She is forthright, upfront, just puts her emotions and feelings out there. She's a very good communicator, and that's very important. I think Belle is great. Charlotte is a really good influence. She might be a gold digger. She might be very self-centered, but at the drop of a hat, she'll just go out of her way for you. She's willing to make sacrifices for her friends. She is a very selfless, selfish person, and it's great. It's a cool personality. I am going to put Cinderella down as a really good influence. She was the victim of a lot of abuse, but she handled it in her own way, in such a way that it didn't manifest into anything destructive. I'm not a therapist or anything, but at a glance, I think Cinderella dealt with her traumas quite well, and I think that a lot of people could learn from her. I believe her name is Princess Dot, also from A Bug's Life. And she is just a child. She's got a lot to learn, but I will say probably far from perfect for that reason. She's got a lot to learn. She's a bit headstrong. Probably has a bit of trouble like taking advice. She's not a great communicator, I guess. So that's where she's going to go. Princess Ailonwi, I would say, is a perfect role model. In the face of horrible adversity, she is able to stand on her own 2 feet. She asks for help when it's needed, and she doesn't feel bad about it. She doesn't beat herself up about needing to ask for help, but she's willing to put in the work where she needs to. She doesn't ask for anything unless it's absolutely needed, and she's selfless and caring. What more could you want in a role model, really? Elsa is at the start of Frozen is probably the worst possible example of a role model. She shuts people out. She does not communicate with people. She internalizes. There's a lot of self-destructive behavior, and I don't think that's something you want to learn from a hero. Esmeralda. Esmeralda is a really good influence. I would say, in fact, she's a perfect role model. In fact, now that I think about it, she stands up for people regardless of how they look, regardless of their background. She doesn't ask questions. She judges with her eyes, and she acts with her whatever she can. She just she takes action, and that's good. I believe this princess's name is Giselle. Sorry if I get any of these names wrong. I've watched all of these movies, but not all recently. Uh, Princess Giselle, I would say, is far from perfect as a good example. She's not terrible. She might actually fit in an average section, but I would say she's far from perfect because at the start of her movie, she is quite vapid, quite. She's got a lot of tunnel vision on things that she will later learn are not as important, and it's great that she gets all of this growth. But at the start of her adventure, she's I wouldn't follow her example. Jane from Tarzan is a perfect role model. She's, I mean, she's smart, she's well read, she's sophisticated, but she's also incredibly caring, and she thinks about things a lot. She puts the needs of others first. She's all about conservation and wildlife. These are all good qualities. Love it. Jasmine, another perfect role model, especially when you consider her whole upbringing and everything. She is still forthright, lets people know what she wants, stands up for her beliefs. Love it. Love Jasmine. I believe this is Kiara from Simba's Pride, the Lion King sequel. Because I can see that Nala's on here as well. I'm pretty sure this one is Nala, but the one we're at now is Kiara. And I would say that Kiara is probably uh, quite terrible as an example to follow. She might not be as bad as the others in this section, but she is quite young, and she's very impulsive. She goes against words of wisdom, which is pretty typical of a youngster, a young person, which is what she is for all intents and purposes. Uh, but yeah, that's where she's going to sit on my list. Kira, Kira Gakash, she is perfect role model, I guess. She's a leader. She's strong. She's always. I mean, there's not much to say about Kira that I haven't already said about a lot of the others in this section. Uh, I don't think she's much about the communicating. She's more about the action, and that's all right. Princess Leia, technically, yes, a Disney princess, I suppose. Um, I would have to say that she's far from perfect. She's selfless and caring and does a lot of good things, but she's also impulsive and hot-tempered, and she succumbs to a lot of flaws. Maid Marian, I would have to say that Maid Marian is a really good influence. Uh, there, in her position, there's not a lot that she can do to stand up for what she believes in. She's, I suppose, in her situation, anyone would be quite frightened. Uh, but in the face of all of this adversity, she still stays true to her love. That is, say, Robin Hood. She's true to herself, and she's true to those she loves. So we like Maid Marian. Megara, again, start of the movie. Uh, At the start of the movie, Meg is just a terrible example. She's made a deal with Hades. She's trying to screw people over. She's very self-centered. I understand her situation, but she's not someone I would take advice from. She's down on her luck, and she's not doing anything to make things better for herself. Not a good example for anyone. Melody from the Little Mermaid sequel. Uh, I'd have to rate her really low. Again, she's just too young. She's just making irrational decisions. She's thinking too much with her heart, not with her brain. She's emotional. It's unfortunate. This is exactly what we expect of a child, I suppose. Merida. Merida is a really good influence from the start of the film. She's headstrong in a good way. She's athletic. She likes what she likes, and she identifies with herself. That's great. Uh, Not so good at the communicating, but she learns that in her movie. Okay, Moana is going to also be a really good influence. Similar to Merida, but not quite. Uh, Moana is not true to herself at the start of the movie. She knows that she wants to be out in the ocean. She knows she wants to adventure, but she pushes it all down to make everyone else happy. And if you're trying to conserve the peace around you, well, you're not conserving the peace inside of you, and that's where she falters. But she does get over that, so that's a good thing. Mulan, really good influence. I bet a lot of people thought I was going to put her in a perfect role model, but she's not quite. At the start of her movie, there's a lot she has to learn. She doesn't really know who she is, and she second guesses herself constantly. Even when she gets to the camp where she's pretending to be the son of her father, she's still second guessing herself. She's not sure. She's not as confident as some of the other heroines, and that's fine. She develops that over the course of her adventure. Okay, so now we have Nala. And Nala, I would say, is a perfect role model. Nala, uh, she stays with her pride, but she does what she has to do to feed the herd. She goes above and beyond. She goes into uncharted territory. She tries to hunt Pumbaa. She doesn't, so that's okay. Uh, she identifies that Simba is trying to hide something from her, and she works at him to get it out of him. It's kind of reminds me of my wife. It's very endearing. Pocahontas, I would say Pocahontas is far from perfect. She's selfless and caring, and she's a strong-willed woman, similar to, say, Mulan or even Moana. She second guesses herself quite a bit, so that's where I'm going to put her on this list. Rapunzel, again, Rapunzel at the start of her movie, I would say, is one of the worst possible examples. Being the nicest person on the planet does not make you a good example. Unfortunate. She is willing to learn, but she succumbs to a lot of abuse from Mother Gothel, whether she realizes it or not. And it's not her fault, but it does make her less desirable as a source of teaching. Raya, I would say, is a really good influence. Raya is strong, Raya is resourceful, and she doesn't really complain. She just does what she has to do. So we like Raya. Snow White, worst possible example. In her particular situation, she should be more clued into what is going on. Uh, the evil queen is trying to kill her, has already attempted to have her killed once at least. So she goes into hiding in the first house that she finds. And what does she do? She pays board by cooking and cleaning, which is fine, but what's your plan? Because she's going to be coming after you. I mean, she, as a royal figure, young or not, there were some things that she should have been thinking about that she clearly wasn't. So, not a good role model in my book. Tiana, I'm going to put her as a really good influence, and that is, again, I bet a lot of people thought she was going to go into perfect role model, but she's not. She is very, very hardworking, but a little too much so at the start of her movie. She works so hard that she doesn't give herself any time for rest or play or anything, and that's not good. It's not healthy. You need to take time for yourself. Tinkerbell is not a good example. Terrible, in fact. If you watch Peter Pan, take note, she tries to kill Wendy because Peter Pan takes a mild interest in her as a new companion. It's it's pretty bad. The Tinkerbell that we know from the Peter Pan movie and the Tinkerbell from the Tinkerbell movies, the CG ones, are like totally different characters, but the one depicted here, completely selfish. I would not take Tinkerbell's advice. This looks like it's supposed to be a reference to all of Ariel's sisters, of which there's like 6 of them or something, including Ariel. I believe there's meant to be one sister for each of the 7 seas or something like that. I don't know all of their names, like Aquata, Alata, Antina, or something. I'm not going to bother trying to remember them all. I'd say they are probably far from perfect. I don't know enough about them. I would say that as royalty, they probably have good manners. They probably have good values. They probably got a lot of good qualities, but they probably also live in the lap of luxury and are completely conceited. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of the expanded Little Mermaid universe to really judge. Okay, last one on this list. We've got Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph, and she's not terrible. She is a victim of circumstances that she is just completely lost control of. She doesn't know what to do to help herself. And she's probably run out of ideas, which is why she's kind of such a brat in her movie. So I'm going to say she's far from perfect. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say she's a much better influence, but from what we see, she does not handle her situation as well as maybe it could have been. So I'm going to put her as a far from perfect role model. In any case, that is the list completely finished. This is how I'm ranking all of these Disney princesses in terms of would they make a good role model, in my opinion. Leave comments telling me who you agreed with and who you would have placed differently. I read your comments. I love reading your comments. They're very fun and interesting. It's great. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified of future uploads and never miss out ever again. Thank you very, very much for watching. Until next time, have a good one.